Gentlemen, a very good day to all. I again hope all to be doing well and to be doing the most with regards to the mathematics. So now again, gents, remember that mathematics is a doing subject. So the more you do, the better you should essentially be. So now, gents, I want us to continue from where we left off in the exponential function. So now what I want us to shift focus to would be the sketching of the actual function. So now remember that in the last video we only looked at the finding the asymptotes as well as the x and the y intercepts. So now, gents, to sketch the function itself, you need the asymptote. So you would need the asymptote, and you would also need the x as well as the y-intercept. So now remember that we are sketching the function. So that would be the exponential function of the form y equals a times b to the power x plus p plus q. And remember that the q itself, this q over here, would be the asymptote. So the asymptote would just be the line that the function itself, or rather the graph itself, will not touch. So we can then say that to sketch the exponential function, you would firstly need the asymptote. So this would be the horizontal asymptote. So that would be y equals q. You would then also need the x as well as the y-intercept. Once you found the x and the y-intercepts as well as the asymptotes, you can then sketch the function itself. So now, gents, I want us to do this in practice. So I've prepared a few questions for us to do that would ultimately lead to the sketching of an exponential function. So I'm gonna just head on over to the next page for us to do so. So now, given the f of x equals negative a half to the power x plus 2. So that's the exponential function given. So now 1.1 wants us to write down the asymptote of f of x. And that in itself would just be 1 mark. So again, to write down means that there's no calculation involved. We essentially just need to identify the horizontal asymptote. So now in this case, the horizontal asymptote would just be y equals 2. So now that in itself was 1.1, where we needed to identify the horizontal asymptote. So now 1.2 wants us to determine the x and the y-intercept. So now I want us to just head on over to the next page for us to be able to do so. Well, before we actually go to the next page, let's just find the y-intercept first. And then after that, we can then do the x-intercept on the next page. So I'll then just have a 1.2 there and a Roman figure 1. So the y-intercept will want us to let the x to equal 0. So now this would be y, which would equal negative a half, where these x, we would sub in the 0 plus 2. So remember that anything that is to the power 0 would just be 1. So we would have 1 bracket plus 2. So now this in itself would just be negative 1 plus 2, which is just positive 1. So the coordinates of the y-intercept will then read as 0 is to 1. Now let's just head on over to the next page for us to do the x-intercept. So that would be Roman figure number 2. So the Roman figure number 2, which would just be the x-intercept. So I'm going to just write this out first. And then in the x-intercept, we have to let y to equal 0. So now this in itself would be 0 equals negative half to the power x plus 2. To solve for x, we shift the first term to the left-hand side. So that would be half to the x equals 2. So also just a note that it now becomes positive. So now this in itself, the half would just be a negative exponent. So that would be converting it to exponential form. Now this would just be negative x. So that would be 2 to the power negative x, which equals 2. Remember that the 2 itself would just be to the power 1. Since we have the same base, we can ignore the bases and just write out the exponents. Therefore, x would then just equal negative 1. So the coordinates of the x-intercept will then just be negative 1 is to 0. So now that we found all the ingredients, if you have it, to be able to sketch a function, we should then go on ahead to sketch the function. For us to do so, I want us to just move on to the next page so that we are able. So now you can then just choose a scale. So that would be a suitable scale for you to be able to draw the function itself. So remember that we will need the x-intercept, which is negative 1 is to 0. We would need the y-intercept, which is 0 is to 1, as well as the horizontal asymptote. Also, just note before we sketch the function itself that it's not always that you will find the x-intercept. So in some cases, the graph will not have the x-intercept depending on the values of a and b. So remember that the values of a and b, these values over here, as well as the value of q as well. So that would depend entirely on whether a, b, or q are negative or positive. So now let's just go on ahead and sketch the function. So now this would be the intercept with the x's. So we only just need to connect them and then head on over to the asymptote as close to the asymptote as possible without touching it. So remember that we show the asymptote by the dotted lines. Now, gents, that in itself would be the function that we have here sketched. So that would be the exponential function sketched. So now, gents, I hope you do go through the video properly and you do attempt the questions that do follow. Gents, a very good day to all. Please do keep on with the practice. A good day.